COP26 summit and what progress the world leaders have actually made. Earlier I spoke to the French economist Laurence Toubiana, who's head of the European Climate Foundation and was a key architect of the Paris Agreement, and the environmentalist and activist Bill McKibben, who leads the climate campaign group 350.org. Bill McKibben, we've had these deals on methane, on deforestation today. Does that give you any cause for optimism, or was it really expected?
Well, look, we're not seriously advancing where we were in Paris, and that was the whole point of coming to Glasgow, to take a real leap forward. And, it's always nice to take a few small steps, but that's actually not helping us catch up with physics at this point.
Laurence Toubiana, you were one of the architects of that Paris Agreement. Was what was being attempted there a whole lot easier than what's being attempted here?
So it was not easier, because it has to build a whole framework, which finally we are still implementing now. Because what is at stake in Glasgow is the credibility of all these commitments who have not been fulfilled.
When you look at the methane deal, for example, Russia and China, the major emitters, are not part of that. It's voluntary. A lot of American or European taxpayers might say, well, why should we pay up to fund this transition when those big polluters aren't?
Well, look, don't waste any sympathy on America. 25% of the carbon in the atmosphere comes from America. It's going to be there for another century, heating the planet. The real problem is that this sort of sense of fatigue that's set in among big governments, and the sense that we're not moving forward at the pace we need to be moving forward.
And there have been some really dire warnings in the hall. For example, the president of Palau in the Pacific saying his country is suffering a slow and painful death. Is there a danger that all of these warnings are now sort of baked in, that people are numb to it all?
On one side, we still miss the urgency here.
But I think that coming out of this, we're going to be continuing to push on governments and politicians, but really a lot of that effort is sort of worn down now. We're going to be pushing hard on no longer on the cashier at the front of the store. We're going to go talk to the manager in the back, the bankers, the asset managers, the people who keep unbelievably irresponsibly funding the fossil fuel industry. So it's overcoming that power of big oil that it remains the stumbling block here.
But there's so much hypocrisy here, though, isn't there? Because people talk about all this stuff and they jet in on their private jets, and then they sign licenses for more oil and gas exploration. What do you do about that? The blah, 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 as Greta Thunberg would call it.
Greta's absolutely right. And we do what Greta's been doing. We organize. The day before I left here, we were sitting in outside Chase Bank in the States. Chase, the biggest bank in the world, has lent $1/3 trillion to the fossil fuel industry since the Paris Climate Accords. They didn't need Donald Trump to sabotage it. They were happy to do it themselves.
So for the moment, climate denial has gone down, but greenwashing is replacing climate denial. And it's as dangerous. It's even worse because you don't know. And because you don't know, you cannot organize across that. So that's why we need public data. We need challenging from the NGO and the civil society. And we need regulators in the governments to do their job. Check that the companies are not lying. Check that the investors are doing. And the risk. It's macroeconomic risk.
People are gathering outside, as they have been doing for, years now, and yet that hasn't brought the Chinese president here to the negotiating table. So is there not a sense of futility about it?
We're clearly making progress. When we got to Paris, the most important thing maybe that happened at the whole place was that activists forced that 1.5 degree temperature target into the document.
Last minute, I can tell you.
And that's changed the discourse, around all of this. We don't give up because we don't win. We know that it's a long fight.
You got that 1.5 Celsius target in the document at the last minute, as you said. What do you think by the end of these 12 days, we're several days in now, what needs to go in the final document that would make you think we've got a chance?
I think we need several things. It's not one. And I think what I see a good sign. You know, that's the first time in a COP that I see so many companies from the global south. I don't like to say Glasgow is the last chance. It's not. You will never. No COP, even Paris, is not the last chance. It's a continuing effort because it's very, very difficult to do that transformation. So it's a day one and the day one plus and continuing effort. And the citizen, in my view, are key.
Lawrence Tubiano, Bill McKinnon, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
After the break.